Hi, this is Shauna from the Foil Fox, and I am so glad you're joining me today. I am sharing Feather Friends 20, which you know this is a series by Papertrey Ink, and this number 20 is a rooster, and he is adorable. And I am going to be cutting all of his pieces out, and then I'm also using the Hello Pumpkin, which I just want the nest for this. I'm going to be using the stamp and the die. And then I'm also going to be using Tin Stitched, which is a great background, and it has that kind of quilted pattern to it, which I really like. And then Skinny Postage Frames, going to be just using the large frame here. I'm going to be cutting that out twice. And then something that I haven't used in a long time called Playful Patterns, just want the sun for that one. And then the Paradise This Way, which is a signpost. I thought this was a small set, but I thought that signpost would be perfect for my sentiment. And then I will be using, for the sentiment, Spring Greetings, and it has all sorts of nice sentiments, but I think I'm going to be using the Happy Spring. And then finally I'm going to be using Into the Blooms 2. It has a daisy, which I think is very cheerful. The two pieces of the daisy plus the center, I'll be cutting those out as well. So the papers I'm going to be using are the black, a little piece of black cardstock for my signpost, a A2 white card base, and of course my bristle paper, which I always mark with a B so I don't get it mixed up, otherwise I'm always second guessing myself. And then a sheet of white cardstock. Now to begin, I'm going to start out with the white cardstock, and I'm going to cut out the Tin Stitched, one of those, and I'm going to cut out two of the postage frame because I want to stack those to give them a little bit more depth. And then with the Bristol paper, I'm going to cut out the rooster, all the pieces of the rooster, and cut out the sun, and then the nest, and the pieces to the daisy. So there's two main pieces plus the center. And then for the black, I'll cut out the signposts. So I've already cut out the rooster here, and I have all the pieces. I was very careful to keep all the pieces together. And I'm going to take this main one and I'm going to color it with a bright buttercup. I'm going to start out with that. You can see the inks that I'm going to be using. These are all Papertrey inks. I really like their colors very much. And I'm using Summer Sunrise just on the breast there, and a touch of Pure Poppy, which is a red, just on the breast there. And then for the body of him, I'm using Dark Indigo. And as I mentioned before, there's a lot of layers to him. So we're just going to build. Now, don't let that scare you that there's a lot of layers, because this comes together super fast and it just adds a lot of dimension. So I'm just doing the base right now and putting this Dark Indigo, and then for his feet, I'm going to be using the Summer Sunrise. And now there's technically three pieces to his head. This is the second piece. I'm going to be using Harvest Gold for the most of it. And of course the comb has to be red, so we're using Pure Poppy for that. And the front of his neck there, I'm going to be using a little bit of the Summer Sunrise and Pure Poppy because it's going to blend into the breast portion of him. Just make that fiddle a little bit more and add a little bit more red. And once that's all done, then I'm going to move on to the middle section of these are part of his middle section feathers in his wing. This piece I'm using the bright buttercup and a little bit of the Summer Sunrise. At the end there, I think I'm going to add a little bit of the tropical teal because I'm going to be using that color as I go to his tail feathers. Now this is the last section. This is actually his wing and wing feathers, and I want to use the tropical teal and a touch of dark indigo. You can see I always blend my colors together because I think it gives more interest. There's 3 feathers, little individual feathers to his tail. I'm using tropical teal for these. And there is a main section to his tail that I'm going to do next, and I will use the dark indigo and the tropical teal. So this is the main section. And now I'm going to go on to the last part of his head, and I'm going to make that comb again really, really red. And the rest of him I'll use the Harvest Gold. So it's a little bit lighter, just to lighten up the very, very top of his head. And then some Summer Sunrise for his feet. There's that another section that goes right on top of the main part of his feet. And then his beak is going to be the Summer Sunrise. And there's 2 pieces to his eye. I colored one with black and left the other one white. Now I'm taking just a little bit of glue and just gluing the top. I don't want to glue everything down because I want to tuck those other feather sections up underneath. So I want to have some room to do that. This is his piece, his last piece to his head, a little touch for his beak, and then a little touch of glue for his eye section. And once you get the head on here with his eyes and his beak, then he really comes to life. He just becomes so, so cute. Put on his little feet there. Now his midsection feathers will tuck right underneath his neck feathers, and then tuck this one right underneath that midsection. And see, this is super fast how he works. Then we'll put the main tail feathers and then these 3 pieces of his tail feathers. And now he's all done, except for I want to do one more thing. I want to set my brush and some clean water, and I'm going to splatter him just to give him kind of a mottled look, because I think that gives him more interest. Now I cut out 2 little small eggs. These actually came from Elegant Eggs, which is a new set as well. But if you have another die, or you can free cut these as well, or just leave them out. But I wanted to have these 2 eggs, and so I'm coloring one with Spring Rain and the other one with Spring Moss. And I'm smushing some spring moss onto my mat there, and I'm splattering it onto my blue egg. Then I thought I would try some fresh snow and see if I could splatter the green one. And it just wasn't showing up enough. So I took out my tried and true bleed proof white. This is Dr. P.H. Martin bleed proof white with my trusty little Starbucks stir stick, and splattered it on both of these. I'm going to set those aside to dry, and then now colored the daisy with a little bit of Harvest Gold and Bright Buttercup mainly. I did have a little bit of the Summer Sunrise on my brush, but I'm mainly using Bright Buttercup and the Harvest Gold. Now for his center, I'm using Honey Nut, and I'll use a little bit of the Cocoa Bean for the shading of the center. Now this is where you see the magic of Bristol paper. If you didn't see it before, here's where you really see it. Look how that ink just goes on like butter. I'm using Bright Buttercup, and then on the outer edges, I'm using Summer Sunrise. Now I got this piece, and I got the signpost to do. This one is the nest, and I'm using Honey Nut, and I'll use Cocoa Bean for the edges and just all the way around the edges. Now the signpost. This is, I'm going to use some anti-static powder because I'm going to do some heat embossing. And I have that happy spring. I'm going to block off with my Post-it note the spring, ink it up with Versamark ink, stamp it, and then I'm going to go back and I'm going to cover up the happy this time and stamp the spring. And because this font is not, it's kind of, has some up and downs to it, you don't even have to worry too much about getting it straight because there really isn't any straight on it. And I sprinkled on some white embossing powder. Some of it kind of stuck behind, so I'm using my brush to brush it off. Just get it nice and clean. Now I will heat emboss it. And then I'm going to do one more thing to my signpost. I'm going to use, I'll use that fresh snow. I'm going to just rub some on to give it kind of a distressed look. But to add to the distressed look, I'm adding some white lines with my white gel pen. You certainly don't need to be an artist for this. It's really easy to just put this on. And now I have this background. I did this background ages ago using this brush plaid background. You don't have to use the background. I wanted to have a little bit peeking through, and I thought this would be cute, but you don't see much of it, so you can just color it. It's colored with Bright Buttercup and Summer Sunrise. I just like that resist, even though you see hardly any of it. Now I cut out the center section of this tin stitch. It doesn't do that normally, but I just took my paper trimmer and cut out the center section. There's a little inside pierced rectangle I just cut out right on the inside of that. Now you remember I took two of those postage frames, skinny postage frames, I glued them together, and now I'm mounting them right on here. It gives them a little dimension without foam tape when you stack two of them. And then, oops, I forgot to put my sun in, so I'm going to sneak that in because I use glue. I can do that. I have a little bit of time to get that in there. I'm going to just set that in there for right now just to get an idea where everything should go. I'm going to put the flower, I kind of bend these leaves up to give it a little bit more dimension. Now, I thought I would just trim these rays off, but I decided that I didn't know if I could really trim all of them off there successfully if I had them in place. So I'm going to trim them out, and then I will put it back in once it's trimmed out. And the glue is still sticky, so I can do that. Now I snuck in the signpost. You see that? I put that together and just glued the happy spring onto the post. I tucked that in there along with those eggs. And now I just need to put in my rooster. And there he is. He's looking absolutely splendid, don't you think? I think his colors are very cheerful, but you can color him any way you want. You can just have a lot of fun with him. You can be very fanciful with the colors if you would like, or you can be really realistic. But I just love that it's very springy. So a few of the items that I used were the Feather Friends 20, the Hello Pumpkin, the Tin Stitch, the Into the Blooms 2, and don't forget the skinny postage frames, and then the Papertrey Ink cubes. But you can click the link down below and it will take you right to our complete supply list and a few of the close-ups. So that will be an easy link for you. And I hope you enjoyed this video. If you did, give us a thumbs up. If you haven't already, we'd be over the moon if you would subscribe. And I want to thank you so much for joining me, and I hope you will join me again soon. Bye.